Hello and welcome to Australia in Space TV. My name's Chris Cubbage. I'm the editor and director with My Security Media and Australia in Space magazine. Today we're joined by Katie Chong, PhD. She is the co-founder with the Sydney Photonics Industry Network, or SPIN. Katie, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And look, we met in Sydney at the recent SPIN event, and it was the International Day of Light in the CBD, and you cover off on the photonics industry. And I like the way you actually chose spin. You thought, oh, well, spin sounded better. You're going to call yourselves the Australian Photonics Industry Network, but spin sounded better, so you stuck with Sydney. Look, it's a fascinating industry. It was a great evening too, and very insightful. And I don't think people realise, well, I didn't, in terms of the impact and breadth of optics and photonics. So maybe just a little bit of background to Spin, where you kind of started from, and then we'll have a bit of a chat around where the industry is actually heading.
Sure, yeah. So Spin, I guess, it's actually started out between me and my co-founder, Sarah Lau. She cannot make it today. But so we are an organization that aims to connect the people. It's really about the people in this photonics community. So we're really targeting like all the way from students, researchers, industry professionals, and even within industry professionals, right? We want to look at all the way from supply chain, manufacturer, all the way to distributors, because we believe that by creating this vibrant community, it will create like a positive impact for this landscape and more innovation. Because I guess coming back to the motivation piece, when Sarah and I met, we were both sort of out of our PhD. We didn't know what industry is like. And we sort of realized, hey, like we don't know where everyone else is. But as we start to be part of like a company, we start to talk to others, we find that everyone felt the same. So then we thought, well, why don't we actually put something together? And so that's sort of how we started.
Well, I think that's part of the challenge. Is it's such a breadth. Again, I hadn't heard of photonics as an industry. They tend to be either their own industries in terms of what optics and photonics is doing within those different sectors, but it's also very, very broad, and it covers everything. And that's why our interest, obviously, in space. You've previously worked with advanced navigation, and I saw LEAP has been a supporter as well. So space companies get it, defense get it. Our security audience will also understand it just from sort of CCTV and video surveillance systems as well. And it's valued at about $1.4 trillion as an industry for 2024, 2025, with some mega trends going to show that this is going to expand. I suppose my question is, given the breadth of the size of it, is that part of the challenge here is to have it recognized as an industry, as a profession, that you can flip between sort of those sectors, say from defense and security over into space or healthcare and the like, given its breadth?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess the way I see photonics is like it's sort of the early stage when electronics started. So because it's sort of the backbone of everything, it is like an enabling technology. So then right now, like I think if we select our occupation, photonics is not part of it. It's not an industry in the government list. And so uh, I think that's what makes it tricky, right? Because you have like the space industry, you have the semiconductor industry, you have robotic, but it you don't really hear about an electronics industry because everyone just has it in it. But because we're so new, I think especially in Australia, the talent pool is also very small. Like a lot of companies don't realize, hey, these are the people you are needing as well, because uh, there isn't even a photonics degree, like unless you go on to. I think there's some research degrees on it now, but at an undergraduate level, it's still not really there. So it's not really in the public yet. It's not in the public eyes yet.
Well, I suppose that's a call to action to get people sort of involved if they're in that discipline. So maybe that's where my thinking is. It's probably more of a discipline than an industry per se. But You had Simon Poole AO there talking on the night, and I've got a McKinsey research paper up on the industry as well. So it is recognised as an industry, and the contribution that it has. I think the other term you used is photonics-enabled technology, and I think that's probably the more apt term. But it covers light sources, LEDs, lasers. Then you've got optics, which is discrete optics, and then optical communications, and then you've got photonic sensors and the like. So again, that's pretty much in all electronics now. And I think with the advent of robotics and what we're going to see with sort of surveillance systems as well, that's really one of the mega trends that we're seeing in terms of the advanced technologies. And something you mentioned earlier is the embedded technology. This is becoming more prevalent. With AI, these optics are going to be seeing and the like. The importance of this sector is quite significant.
Yeah, so I guess quoting Simon's presentation as well, I got some stats in front of me too. So within Australia, it's a $4.7 million industry, and we have like 30,000 people that are employed in it right now. And optical communication is continuing to be the largest and is similar to the world trend. But I think, like you said, on the embedded side, where I see with Australia, there's a potential is the integrated photonics, because that is where miniaturization happens, where like we can drive costs down, we can drive power consumption down, and that's sort of the future for technology. And now we also have like S3B, who is focusing on semiconductor, and it just marries really well with integrated photonics. So I think Australia is sort of, we can try to take that path. And as we also heard from the speakers at the SPIN event, so Advanced Navigation, they have manufacturing facility to package up their own integrated photonic circuit now. So I think this is something that's very exciting, and I think it's also quite personal to me because it's sort of that area that I came from. So yeah, I think in in terms of like matching to the international trend, I feel that Australia is sort of behind a bit, um, because we're just very small. So it's sort of, we look at what the world is doing and then we follow. But there are definitely areas we're doing really well. Like as also Simon mentioned, quantum sensing is, we there's 3 companies in Australia that's in the top 10, and those are also photonics enabled technology. So I think these are the area, and also biomedical as well, with a very strong healthcare system and uh, medical research in Australia. That would be something that Australia can get pretty strong in.
I suppose that's one aspect. I was going to ask where Australia does sort of the map of Australia and where you see this sort of this industry where its strengths are. Maybe in Sydney, you called yourselves Sydney, but what is the sort of the spread here in Australia? It sounds like each industry sector should identify their photonics enabled technology and those providing it and reach out to them. But yeah, just in Australia, where are you seeing some of the strengths state to state?
So I guess I'm definitely more familiar with Sydney. So I think in Sydney we definitely have very strong industry in terms of optical communication, because Finnish Australia has been around for more than 20 years, and like there's a very, I mean, they're the international corporate, right? So that's definitely very strong. And I think I also see that in Adelaide there is a space industry. A lot of space-based startup is also starting there, and I feel like it's quite scattered around as well. Like we have quantum startup across the country, in Adelaide, in Sydney, but I believe that Sydney is still one of the strongest in terms of innovation in this space.
I suppose one of the other ones is the mega trends here. Um, that's one of those is the surging demand for data transfer speeds, growth in remote vision and sensing applications, the rise of digital and additive manufacturing, rapid expansion in the non-invasive life sciences, which you mentioned, healthcare and the like, transition to sustainable energy sources, and then an increase in geopolitical uncertainty, which then rises up in surveillance and defence spending as well. Maybe what was the attraction for the industry for you? What got you into this field? You're an optical engineer by trade. Yeah, where did your sort of interest come from, and for part of your physics studies, I imagine?
Yeah, it's probably not a super exciting answer. um, but I guess I got into nanophotonics as I was entering my PhD. At the time, because I was trained as an experimentalist. I'm stronger experimentally. I like being hands-on, so I just wanted to put something together. And at the time, I didn't really know what's out there, to be honest. I was quite young, and so I took a couple of projects I was looking at to my lecturer and asked, hey, which one should I take? It was between a nuclear physics project and a photonics project. And he basically said, photonics is the future, take that. So that's
Right.
how I got into it. But obviously, once I started working, I was also fascinated by it. I was very excited to see, like, I was also working at Barat before, looking at the lighter development. It's just incredible, like the complexity, the how much we can play with light. It is something that I'm continuously fascinated by.
Well, and likewise, I think I started at the start. Been a CCTV camera surveillance consultant for many years, and just seeing the advances in optical, just and now in optical communications, but just optical surveillance from analog through to digital, and now the video analytics and the AI platforms coming in over the back of that. Yeah, I've been watching that for some time and continually amazed. And now with the space sector, you see optical communications being a significant part, and again, significant advancements being made. I'm going to give a shout out. We've got CubeSat coming up in Sydney at the University of New South Wales next month, and I think again some of those companies that you had on display at your spin event will be there as well. So yeah, you get a sense of where this is all happening and the reliance on it. Maybe a call to action, Katie, for Spin, maybe your next event, or what the audience could keep an eye out for.
Yeah, so we haven't started planning for the next event. We are really wanting to get feedback because I guess we're a community or we are an organization that serves the community. So I guess the call to action is really to ask people to provide us feedback, tell us what they want, because we don't want to put something together that no one wants to go to. So please do, yeah, tell us what you want to see, what you don't want to see as well, and so we can tailor something that is what the community want for next year. And we try to time it for the International Day of Light as much as we can as well.
Nice. Well, it's spin-au.com is the website. We'll have the link in the show notes. I'll also have the link to the McKinsey materials that I had, which is worth speaking to. And then I think also, given I'll give you a bit of feedback, is I think definitely would like to hear from space companies. And then I'll also give a shout out to the security companies. And I think giving a sense of the practical and also robotics, I think just the practical industry applications of optics and photonics. But Katie Chong, PhD, the co-founder from 2021. So you've been going for a few years now with the Sydney Photonics Industry Network, or SPIN. Thank you very much for joining us today on Australia in Space TV.
Thanks a lot, Chris.